So here's the thing about mental health. It's fucking awful. I figured I'd do another video update. I'm still waiting on my tablet to come. It should be arriving in the next day or two. It's being shipped to me. For those who don't know, missed my last update. Long story short, I had to go on a vacation with my in-laws. I didn't have good enough internet while on the vacation to upload any of my updates, and now I, in our rush to get home, left that tablet at the hotel, so it is being shipped back to me. But because I'm not paying for it to be shipped back to me, they're not exactly in the greatest of hurries. So it should be here in the next day or two. But I wanted to do some kind of update, leaving everybody hanging. I've been very busy lately doing commissions because I was shorted on my paycheck, and I absolutely need the money right now. So that brought me to the subject of mental health, and figured, hey, we can talk about that for a minute, because it's just like the worst thing for us to have to take care of, and we should, absolutely, and we don't enough. All right, and it's really annoying to me in every respect, all the time, forever. I'll give a few examples. So, like, when I was a teenager, I got into some minor trouble because somebody misunderstood some of my art, and I was forced to go see a psychologist. He was actually a psychiatrist. He just did not like the term. That seemed shady to me. But I'm not the professional here. Anyway, he said that he was technically a psychiatrist, but he wanted me to consider him a psychologist, a therapist, right? Sounds kind of like blowing it out his ass now that I'm much older, but he was a professional, and he was covered by my dad's insurance, which was the most important thing, I guess. So anyway, because of someone misinterpreting my art, I had to go see that guy, and actually was very helpful. I found a lot of what was going on with me was tied to some obsessive compulsive disorder and depression, and I learned some strategies, since he didn't not believe in medication, but he always felt that because of the side effects and the fact that the teenage brain was developing, that medication should be a last resort, right? And then I didn't see him for long enough for us to ever move to that step. But he gave me a lot of tools for dealing with things like obsessive compulsive disorder that helped me to manage it in a way that allowed me to lead a relatively normal life. But there are a few things that bother me about it. Number one is that not everyone has that kind of access, right? So one of the most annoying things to some people is like a self-diagnosed mental illness, right? Or not necessarily mental illness, but anything related to that, right? Self-diagnosis. A lot of people just really friggin' hate that. And I can see why, because you'll see like a teenage girl or boy deciding that they have borderline personality disorder or Asperger's, and that is their ticket to being a dickhead, right? It's happened. I know, because I work in the education system. so I get to experience those dickheads firsthand. But the reality is that that's not the majority at all, right? A lot of self-diagnosis is people trying to find out what's wrong with them. And then they do research, and they can't see a professional. Or they see a professional who doesn't take them seriously, right? For the longest time, my wife, she suffers from depression, right? And it can be pretty bad, but is easily managed with medication. Getting her onto that medication in the first place has sometimes been a challenge, right? Because, I mean, number one, we've got a problem with health professionals in this country anyway, not listening to their woman patients. That's a whole other kettle of fish. But then, further is the fact that we've got some doctors who automatically, if you've been on a prescription for antidepressants since you were like 17 or 18 years old, that doctors, jump into the conclusion that you have been over-medicated, and that's part of the system that they want to fight against. Very noble cause, guys. And now people trying to kill themselves in the bathroom because you took away their fucking Zoloft that they need to survive, right? Or here's the other thing that's fucked up about it. People try to kill themselves in their bathroom because they're on the Zoloft that's supposed to make them less depressed. It's a fucking mess. The brain is a garbage machine designed by a garbage inventor. We don't know how it works. We just know that if we poke it in the right ways, it does certain things some of the time, but not all of the time. I don't want to get off on a tangent here. The other thing that really pisses me off is the way obsessive compulsive disorder and other disorders, they're managed by the media. So as part of my obsessive compulsive disorder, I have intrusive thoughts, right? What intrusive thoughts means is I would never hurt anybody, right? But if I'm walking behind somebody on the street, right, a thought might pop into my head. It'd be like, hey, I bet you could kill that guy and get away with it. Maybe you should do that, right? It's fucked up. It's horrific. It's something I don't like to talk about with people because they don't understand that I have no control over that thought. And it's not something I would ever act on, right? I'm never going to hurt anybody. That's the thing that pops into my head. And the thing is, those things pop into your head, those compulsions, those actions that you do, things like counting and keeping an orderly life. That's the thing, is people think of it as individual ticks, like counting lampposts. It's not necessarily as down to it as that. For me, it was all about order, and that's how you keep those thoughts at bay. Is a mixture of distracting your brain and just telling your brain that you got better things to do, right? And so when my life would get out of order, those intrusive thoughts would get worse, right? And it's simple stuff like making sure that the eggs in the carton are symmetrical. It's a dumb thing. I know it's a dumb thing, but it helps. And so that's why I had to do it all the time, right? And yet the TV tells people that obsessive compulsive disorder means I wash my hands a lot and I'm technically a genius, all right? Fuck that. Fuck Monk, all right? It's all bullshit. I don't even really care that there's not more accurate representation of my particular disorder in the media. That's fine, okay? No one gets it right when it comes to stuff. The NSA gets fucking no accurate treatment in any media that I've seen so far. I don't get mad about that. I don't get mad about the tons of shit that they get wrong about everything. It's just that it sets up people's expectations for me, and I'm not going to fulfill those expectations. And then we've got a problem where people assume that you're lying about your own mental health because your brain doesn't work the way it says it should on the TV with motherfuckers like Sheldon Cooper on his Big Bang Theory, right? that's another one that's like a problem for me. Here's a character, right? The creators have said, hey, he's just a weird guy. And then like half the autistic community claimed him, and the other half said, hey, you're making autistic people look bad, when like he was meant to be just a fucking weirdo. Unfortunately, making him a weirdo ended up ticking off a lot of those Asperger's boxes, right? And we end up in a situation where like they can't win. Not necessarily that I want them to win, because that show has had its turn and can go away forever, but they really can't win with that character, because on the one hand, he was never meant to be a portrayal of an autistic person, but on the other hand, because he met so many of those I guess qualifications would be the word I'd use there. He met so many of the qualifications for that particular place on the spectrum that a bunch of people saw themselves in him, or saw people they knew in him. And then a bunch of people, and I mean a bunch, were like totally insulted by that. It's an unfortunate situation, but it's one of the problems we have to deal with these days. And I'd really just not have to deal with it. Like, if I'm trying to do something to order my life, to make my obsessive compulsive disorder more manageable, for me, some of you guys know this already, the three of you watching. Well, for me, taking notes is a big part of me managing my OCD. Is I don't go around washing my hands all the time. I don't bring my own silverware in restaurants and things like that. It's more like something happens this day, even if it's something minor, I write it down. If I write down my entire day, not quite like journaling, more like imagine my life is a history class and I am sitting in the lecture, right? It's like lecture notes, right? So it'd be like, oh, somebody said something to this effect at like 2 p.m. today, right? It sounds kind of dumb to some people, but that's what helps me stay ordered, which is what helps me keep those intrusive thoughts away, right? So if I'm trying to do that, I don't need some jackoff telling me that like that's not really obsessive compulsive disorder, because I'm not a fucking neat freak, right? Anyway, there was no real point to this. I just wanted to talk to you guys for a while. I've been having a tough time lately, and talking to you guys helps. That's not a mental illness related thing. Just things are sort of shit now, and I'm sure they'll get better in the future. But I appreciate you guys listening to me, and I look forward to all the number of uploads that I have to do tomorrow or the next day when my tablet finally gets here. If you guys want to check out any of my other stuff, it's all on the YouTube. So go ahead and like and subscribe, and you hit that bell notification icon. That's anytime I do another video, it'll email you and say, hey, Coop did another video, why don't you go check it out? And then you can ignore that if you want. The numbers are good for me though, so either way is fine. Anyway, if also I didn't mention, if you want any art commissions, I specialize in comic book style art, but also can draw titties and dicks on things that don't normally have titties and dicks. I really need cash right now, so if you want in on that, hit me up. And I will draw you some stupid, nasty garbage. All right? You take it easy, guys. Love you. Bye.